Sharknado. It's your greatest foe. Don't wanna get eaten by Sharknado.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again to an episode of Bulldrek. My name is Bull, and this week we're going to be talking about Sharknado 4, The Fourth Awakens. Now, I've talked a little bit about Sharknado a little while back, and I was kind of excited about it, because I have this weird affection for this series. Straight up, off the bat, the series is terrible. I mean, there's no ands, ifs, or buts. It's just a god-awful series. The plotting is terrible. The pacing is awful. The acting is all over the place. But the weird thing is the series just the directors, the actors, everybody knows that it's terrible, and they just lean into it. They're just like, "Yep, this is bad, and we're just going to make it worse." And it's one of those series that's so much camp that it's like summer camp. It's just fun, I guess. I really enjoy the series, and Sharknado 4 was no exception. I think it really kind of went over the top in a few places, like way over the top in a few places. So it's going to be some spoilers, but I'm not going to get too heavy into the series, into the show. But there will be some spoilers for various bits and pieces, so bear with that in mind. First off, like the last couple of films for sure, the series throws out cameo after cameo after cameo, and God knows I didn't catch even half of them, because they're pulling from everything. I mean, they pull from, movie stars, TV stars, singers, actors. They pull from reality TV shows, models, news anchors, sportscasters. They're pulling personalities from all over the place, and they come and go so fast sometimes. Just the random ride operator, or the elevator operator, or whatever. Generally speaking, if somebody gets a line of dialogue and then gets eaten by a shark, chances are they were someone famous. And so this show, this series, the movie, the Sharknado 4, picks up, and it's been 5 years since the previous movie. Tara Reid's character is presumed dead. Her son is their son is now 5 years old. And there's an interesting plot hook that I'll try to remember to talk about here in a minute involving the kid, but that doesn't really get explored in the show. It's touched on and then just sort of ignored, and it's actually kind of a shame because it would have been interesting. We'll get to that in a minute. So Tara Reid's character is assumed to be dead. It's been 5 years since the last movie and been 5 years since the last Sharknado attack. This company, Astro X, and its founder, they rescued Finn Shepard, the main character. They rescued his dad, David Hasselhoff, from the moon, where he had been stranded at the end of the last movie. Keep wanting to say episodes, because now that I've seen 4 of these things, it feels almost like I'm watching a TV series rather than a bunch of movies. And, well, let's face it, the FX budget and the overall acting quality is up there with some of the worst TV shows. But anyways, so they've brought his dad back, and his dad's now kind of working to develop some new stuff. But they've developed these pylons they put all over the country that can emit these pulses that will disperse tornadoes before they start forming, preventing the formation of any Sharknadoes. Unfortunately for all involved, apparently standard tornadoes are not the only thing that can be formed that can form Sharknadoes, as they find out in this one, because they kind of just go batshit crazy with it. They're in Vegas for a big family get-together thing when, out of nowhere, a sandstorm erupts and creates, effectively, a sandnado. And coincidentally enough, there was a new Shark World hotel that was just opening up, capitalizing kind of on the Sharknado craze that had happened earlier. And the hotel is basically basically half the hotel is just an aquarium filled with sharks. the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. So, of course, the first thing that happens is this Sharknado immediately starts coming into Las Vegas. Astro X fires off its pulses, but they don't affect the tornado, the Sharknado, because as they find out, their instruments are only they don't realize this until much later in the film, but their instruments are only calibrated specifically for tornadoes. And so once you start adding other things into the tornado and the Sharknadoes, apparently it changes the density or something. There was some pseudoscience babble that got spit out for about half a second just as a justification for why they couldn't just shut these down. So the Sharknado comes over, picks up a crap load of sharks, because it immediately goes right through the shark hotel, and starts throwing sharks all over Vegas, which was a great excuse to kill all kinds of famous people. So then these things start branching all over the place, and we start getting some crazy, crazy tornadoes. One of the tornadoes cuts through, because you end up with, there's 3 of them by the end of it. And one of them cuts through the Boulder Dam and shreds it, but in the process picks up all kinds of debris from it. So they end up calling that a Bouldernado. And it's throwing around these sharks that are just covered with basically these sharks with all these rocks embedded in them. But the sharks are fine. They're still just chomping away, but now they're covered in rocks. Another one picks up, goes through an oil field, picks up a bunch of oil and becomes, as they refer to it, as an oil-nado. But then it lights on fire and becomes a fire-nado. They manage to put out the fire, but then it goes through a power plant and picks up electricity somehow and becomes a lightning-nado. There's another one at one point that goes across a lava bed and picks up a bunch of lava and becomes a lava-nado. And yeah, it's, like I said, it just got freaking ridiculous. But like I said, I mean, it's so much camp, and they just rather than steering around it or just kind of going, yeah, there's this and it's kind of silly, hee hee, they just lean into it and go nuts. Like I said, they're just coming up with new types of tornadoes just for no freaking reason. And then towards the end, and this was a cool one, I grew up in northeastern Ohio, a town called Geneva. And 2 towns over from me is a town called Perry. And when I was a kid, they built a nuclear power plant in Perry. And this was a big deal for the area, you know. Especially because back in the 80s, you know, nuclear power was A, the savior of us all, and B, the destruction of us all. 70s and 80s. And like, I know when I was in 8th grade, I even did I did a report about the Perry nuclear power plant. Well, in the movie, one of the tornadoes cuts through Ohio and goes across the Perry nuclear power plant, destroys it, sucks up all the radioactivity, and becomes a nuclear NATO. This glowing red or glowing green tornado with all these like nuclear green sharks. It's really funny. And the whole thing's just crazy and silly. It's just bizarre. Tara Reid's character becomes a cyborg for no real reason. That's how she survived, though, the getting the debris falling on her at the end of 3. Is her dad rebuilds her, but her dad convinces everybody else that she's dead for some reason. They've never really explained why he does this, other than it's Gary Busey is her father, and Gary Busey's insane. But his character is insane too, but, you know, Gary Busey himself is also off his rocker. But his character in the movie decides that for whatever reason he doesn't want anybody to know that Tara Reid's still alive. And there's some sort of half-hearted explanation that she's still, her battery pack and everything that's operating her is still experimental, and they don't know how long it'll last. And he didn't want to get everybody's hopes up, but ultimately he didn't tell anybody she was still alive, and it's a thing. But she's super strong, and in fact they actually do a lot of weird little homages to other films and properties during this. Like at one point, David Hasselhoff and another character are driving around in this really old, like 1940s, 30s car, and then the tornado kind of picks it up and then drops it. Is dropping it on this kid, but Tara Reid shows up right in time and she's able to catch it because being a cyborg, she's now super strong. And it's actually this whole homage to the Action Comics Superman debut, where he's holding up the car above the kid. It was really neat. There's another point where they need a car, so they run into Steve Guttenberg's character. Steve Guttenberg had a brief cameo in one of the earlier movies, but he was also in another movie by the same company called Lavalantula, which I never want to watch because me and spiders don't get along at all. Spiders are creepy things. But I love the name, and they have a planned sequel that haven't. I don't know if they filmed it or not yet, but it was To Lava, To Lantula, which I just thought was just the stupidest and most hilarious name ever. But Steve Guttenberg's character shows up because they need a ride. They need a car. So they call him up, and he's able to hook them up with a car. And it's Christine from the movie Christine, Stephen King's Christine. It's that particular car. And apparently they say something about him running it on remote or something like that. But the car drives up to them by itself. And then he calls it Christine and says that when you're done, don't worry about it. She'll find her way home to me or something like that. So that was kind of a neat little cameo. But then the end of the movie is where it just ultimately tops it off. The whole thing caps off at the Niagara Falls. Because they have this whole weird thing about ferrofluids and they need to do something with water. And Niagara Falls is the closest one. So they managed to track it to Niagara Falls, and they set up their thingy to try to stop the tornado, because they need to get rid of all the radiation, so then they can turn it into a regular tornado, or a regular Sharknado, and then they can stop it. So they get there, and they're setting everything up, and they're fighting it, and they manage to stop the tornado for the most part. But right as they're finishing up, like pretty much all the members of the family, and at this point, most of Finn's family is there. He's got his 5-year-old kid. He's got his son from the first movie, who's played by a different actor this time around. His cousin, I don't know, there's a couple of girls, the dad, his son, and then his 5-year-old. And like everybody but the 5-year-old manages to get eaten by a different shark throughout like the end fight. They're all getting eaten, and then at one point Finn gets swallowed by a shark right at the end, right as he's finished everything up and he's the hero. He gets swallowed by a shark. But then that shark gets swallowed by a bigger shark. That shark gets swallowed by an even bigger shark. And that shark gets swallowed by an even bigger shark, which gets swallowed by a whale. Follow me? Yes, it's that freaking ridiculous. But also hilarious. And then the whale crashes to the ground. And then the little 5-year-old was running up because he'd wanted his own chainsaw. So they gave him this little toy-looking chainsaw. But apparently, it was an actual real chainsaw. It's just kiddie-sized. And he starts cutting open the sharks. Or he cuts open the whale. And when he cuts open the whale, one of the grandpa, David Hasselhoff's character, shows up. And then he cuts open another shark, and it's another one of the characters. And through the whole thing, he ends up managing to free all the entire family. They were all swallowed sort of like Russian nesting doll style. Which, again, like I said, ridiculous. Silly, stupid, horrible, and ridiculous. But fun, funny, just killed me. And then, of course, the whole thing ends with of all things, the Eiffel Tower falling into the falls with a shadowy figure that Finn calls out to as, and now I'm blanking on it. It's the girl from the last movie and the first movie, the one that had kind of become a shark hunter. Echo? No, not Echo. Something like that. I'm blanking on her name now. Oh well. Anyways, not important. I'm tired. It's late. I'm doing this video. It's really late at night, and I'm not about to go looking it up. So enjoy that. So overall, was it worth watching? Yes. Yes, it was, in my opinion. But honestly, only if you liked the previous movies. If you kind of were getting tired of them by the last one, or you thought they were stupid to begin with, this one's not going to change your mind. But if you kind of enjoyed them for what they are, the stupid camp, the just crazy, batshit insane wackiness of the show, of the movies, then yes, I think you'll love this movie. It was a lot of fun, a lot of great cameos, just some stupid stuff all over the place. But some of it didn't make, like I said, there was bits that didn't make sense. The plot just sort of just breakneck speed, doesn't ever stop. Things are just happening, and there's just constant movement. Now, I mentioned I was going to talk about one thing, and I want to. Gil. Because we're keeping with the fish appendages theme, because we've got Finn, and now we've got Gil. That's the 5-year-old son, Gil. There's a weird little thing with Gil that kind of gets mentioned in passing a couple of times, but is never really dealt with in any serious way, because it's not what these movies do. But I think in a more serious movie, this would have been a really fascinating subplot. Sort of. Because at the end of the third movie, Tara Reid gave birth inside the shark, and then she basically, when Finn was cutting open the shark, she shoves the kid out first, and then she steps out and promptly gets squashed by flaming wreckage, like you do. So there's a point earlier in the movie where the kid's running around wearing this like shark hoodie, basically going, "I'm a shark, arr!" And then at another point he just drops this casual mention that, well, when Tara Reid first comes back, they're like, "This is your mom," and he's like, "That's not my mom. My mom's a shark." And now the only thing I can figure is that at some point he had overheard them telling the story of his birth and how he was born inside the shark, and somehow, because his mother, Tara Reid's character was in a coma for a few years and then was pronounced dead. They pulled life support, and supposedly she died. So the kid's never known his mom. So the only thing I can assume is that he heard this story and then just in his little 5-year-old brain superimposed the idea that I don't have a mommy, man, I came out of a shark, so my mom must have been a shark. So there was this weird little thing, and then, like I said, it kind of ends up getting glossed over towards the end and ignored, and I think it would have been an interesting subplot. I don't know. I mean, like I said, probably a little more than these movies are really designed to handle, to be sure. But I think it could have been interesting. It's kind of a shame, a little bit of a lost opportunity. Who knows? Maybe they'll dive into it for Sharknado 5, which apparently has been greenlit. Doesn't have a title or a subtitle yet, but it's Sharknado 5. So, probably won't see that for a while, but I am looking forward to it. Because I absolutely love these movies. They are stupid. They are terrible. But they're like the old Troma movies. They're kind of glorious in how bad they are because they know they're bad, and they just wallow in it. So, alright, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. If you like this video, please click like. Check out my other videos if you're interested. Subscribe to my channel. Check out my Patreon at the link below, patreon.com/Bulldrek. I appreciate you watching, and go check out the movie if you're interested. Like I said, I had a great time with it. I really liked it. So, thanks for watching, and have a good one.